Hello everyone. I think it has been 2 3 days since I last posted a long form type of video. So I'll cover up what happened in these last 2 to 3 days altogether. Firstly, in the book Sapiens, I read about the fact that chimpanzees can form groups of about 20 to 50 troops, but we humans can do so for about 150 people. And that is primarily because we can gossip. Now, we believe that gossip is a negative thing. It is, according to me, but it also has certain advantages to it that we can form preconceived judgments about people. And as bad as judgments are, they are certainly useful, and that's why we humans form them. Even superstitions to some degree, they they help us put load off our conscious brain, the brain that uses a lot of energy to justify things, and offload them to our subconscious and say, oh, this is bad, this is a bad omen, or this is something. And there's certainly reasons behind superstitions aren't just blind faiths. For example, there's a superstition quite famous in India, that is, you do not broom in the dark, basically. And as stupid as that sounds, it was useful, or it was, let's say, there was a reason behind the superstition, and that was that in the older times, when there was no light, if you broomed your house, there was a very likely chance that you would probably misplace something valuable, or something that would fall into up to the ground, or some sort of jewelry, because Indians used to wear a lot of jewelry in the older days. So some jewelry might get broomed out of the house, and therefore you do not broom when it's dark. You broom only when it's like when the sun is available, and because you can see what you've broomed out. Of course, that superstition isn't valid these days, but just go like, the point of me saying this is because that I do believe superstitions, judgments have a certain value and certain advantages to them. They also are disadvantages for the common reasons. And then we are also going back to the point that we can form groups of about 150 because of gossip. We are the only species that can form groups larger than 150 also, and that is primarily due to we humans having imaginary systems, and thanks to our language being so supple that we can communicate these imaginations. For example, we can communicate common believing, we can communicate beliefs, different beliefs, beliefs of a nation, beliefs of a god, beliefs of a system, beliefs of a culture, beliefs, basically what you believe. And that helps us unite more people than say 150 because of gossip, because you can effectively gossip only up to about 150 people. So where myths come in is that a common myth of a country, even countries are a myth, because a country is nothing but an imaginary boundary around a certain land, and segregation of two areas similarly. So it's a myth. And then the belief in this myth, if strong enough, creates a country. And this also helps the governors govern an army is certainly larger than 150 units, and they're able to do so because they instill the common belief in every soldier of the country, that you are fighting to protect this country. They're basically just fighting to protect a believed land, a believed border. This goes on to show that how powerful our communication is if we can communicate our beliefs. And that is what I believe the human superpower is, the ability to communicate beliefs and make people believe in our beliefs or certain common beliefs. Now, these common beliefs are also referred to as imagined realities in the book Sapiens, and it just goes on to show that how if enough people imagine or believe in a certain thing, it certainly becomes a reality. For example, the US dollar having power is just basically a belief in the US dollar by multiple countries. Gold being the backing currency behind all the currencies is just the common belief that the gold has certain value, when gold certainly has pretty much no value, and it's very useless for metal as compared to other metals like iron, or probably even silver is more useful than gold. And then I learned the slipped constructor knot. This knot is used to bind basically multiple logs, can be used to bind multiple logs or tie around knot around a log, but I'm not quite sure why you would want to do that. But just basically keep certain things wrapped up and tight. Then in Greek, I learned oxy. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Is basically no, and then the letter H, both the small case and the large case, are used to denote a female. Like a female noun would be H. I'm not quite. I don't quite remember what the pronunciation of H is, but basically H architectunas. So that is she, like the architect or an architect, but basically just referring to the architect as a female. And similarly, we use O. It's used to refer males. That is what I believe I've learned so far. Like that is what I believe that means. And then I also, in my journal, I wrote basically that I feel inspired to make content due to certain creators. One creator is a Sabhya. He was a college mate of mine, and he's not a very large creator per se, but he's certainly doing well, and I really do like his content. Then we have Miss Eating Good. Now she's a Chinese creator. She's roaming around the world and not just contained to China, but her content is a little bit of dystopian, a little bit of reality, and I like the mix. And then there's Erin Merrill, who's basically doing content around studying, management, neurology, and different sort of thing, management, different sorts of basically what you learn through a self-help book. Then I'm also feeling pretty useless about the content that I'm making. And it's not because I'm not getting views. I'm not making content for the purpose of views. I'm making content for the purpose of putting myself out there, putting my learning journey, putting my thoughts, my beliefs, everything out there. But then also at the same time, my content doesn't quite look what I want it to look like. And the problem is that I'm not sure what I want it to look like. Then there's certain quick facts that I learned today. I'll put the links in from basically where I learned them from. Quick facts being 3 quick facts today. One is the height of the ceiling, like basically how high a ceiling is, impacts how you think. And how it matters is that if the ceilings are lower, you're basically more constrained and detail oriented thinker. And if the ceilings are very high or non existent, if you're like in a park or something, you basically have a lot of abstract thoughts, and you can basically imagine a lot more freedom of imagination, and a lot more openly. You imagine a lot more abstract things actually if there's no ceiling or very high ceilings. And then there was this video about interior design. I'm a little bit interested in interior design, so that's why it probably popped up on my feed. And it was about how interior designers aren't quite efficient in how they design, and how we should not follow the norms or the social constraints of how you're supposed to interior design, but basically just notice what you're doing, and that will make a home a lot more practical and a lot more flowy around you. And it will basically shift how you walk around the home. It makes interior design is basically supposed to make the home work around you and not you work around the home. How you do that is you notice how you do certain things. For example, if you notice that a lot of your clothes are just scattered around, a lot of your laundry clothes are just scattered around, so you do not place a laundry basket just anywhere. You notice where most of your laundry gathers up, and you place a laundry basket there, because you're more likely to place laundry in the basket there, because it certainly makes sense for you to do that, because your laundry is anyways getting collected there, and that means that there's something along the day or along the flow of how you put your laundry that it ends up there. So basically putting a laundry bag there would be a nice idea. A key stand would be nicer to have around a door. Of course, that's a social norm also, but just goes on to show that interior design is supposed to help help your home flow around you instead of you feeling conscious about how you managing your home. And then the third factor, it wasn't the third thing isn't quite a fact, but something that I want to do. It's a challenge of 100 days of making, and this challenge is basically you just make something constantly for 100 days, and really that's about it. So I want to do this, but I'm not quite sure what I want to make. I certainly have quite few areas, but few of them are too large, or like few of them are too time consuming for me to be able to do daily, and I know that I'm not going to be able to do that. You can say I'm pessimistic, but I call it realism. So that's about it. That's been the last 2 3 days. That's what I've learned, that's what I've read, that's what my days have been like. Good night, thank you.